The night the walls cracked wasn't loud at first, it was calculated, surgical, almost chillingly quiet until everything exploded at once. Because what really happened inside that royal perimeter wasn't just a police raid, it was a betrayal so deep, so calculated, it made history itself flinch. And at the center of it all, Queen Camilla on her knees in panic and Prince William standing colder than anyone has ever seen him. This wasn't family anymore, this was war. London, March 16th, 2026. The kind of date that doesn't just sit quietly in history, it claws its way in. Because at exactly 2:00 a.m., the illusion shattered. 12 tactical units. Not a knock, not a warning. Just force, precision, intent. Ray Millhouse, the private sanctuary, suddenly turned into a crime scene. And here's where it gets disturbing. This wasn't spontaneous. This was something that had been building quietly, invisibly, for years. But the real shock? The man who allowed it to happen. No, who engineered it. William didn't hesitate. Didn't blink, didn't protect. He stepped out of the role everyone expected him to play. Son, gone. Heir, no longer waiting. He moved like a sovereign already crowned, cutting straight through 700 years of royal immunity as if it meant nothing. And that's when the palace realized this wasn't damage control. This was a purge. And Camilla, this is where everything turns uncomfortable. Because sources say she didn't walk into that private meeting with William as a queen. She walked in desperate, shaking, calculating. She tried to rewrite reality in real time. Not facts, feelings. Not law, emotion. She leaned in, voice cracking, and dropped the line that was supposed to save everything, "You are brothers." Think about that. Not defense, not denial, manipulation. She tried to force a bond that never existed, tried to make loyalty override evidence. But what she didn't understand, what she fatally miscalculated, was that William had already crossed that line mentally. For him, this wasn't family anymore. It was contamination. And when she reached for his hands, he pulled back. Not dramatically, not loudly, just enough. Enough to say everything without saying anything. And then came the moment. The one that insiders still whisper about. He didn't argue, didn't shout, didn't defend himself. He just placed the file on the table. The dossier, the proof, cold, final, movements of assets, Luxembourg accounts, shell companies, Hill and Crown Limited. It wasn't speculation, it was mapped, tracked, undeniable. And that's when he said it. Quietly, almost too quietly. There is no brother here, only a thief. That line didn't just end the conversation. It buried it. Because in that second, something irreversible happened. Camilla's entire strategy collapsed. The emotional play, dead. The family angle, gone. What she thought was a shield became evidence of how disconnected she was from the gravity of what had been done. And William, he didn't soften, didn't bend, he went further. He handed everything to the serious fraud office, not internally, not quietly, publicly, legally, permanently. And here's where it gets even more ruthless. By invoking the Fraud Act of 2006, he did something no one saw coming. He locked the door completely. Even King Charles III couldn't intervene anymore. No royal pardon, no quiet resolution, no protection. The crown itself stripped of its ability to shield its own. This wasn't just a legal move, it was strategic dismantling. Because what investigators were uncovering wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a one-time slip. It was a system, a machine, a 3-year operation designed with chilling precision. Assets marked as damaged, disappearing. Treasures irreplaceable, vanishing from official records. And at the center of it, Tom Parker Bowles, not a passive participant, the orchestrator. And the scale? This is where it stops being gossip and starts sounding like something out of a financial thriller. The Omen Sun necklace, $22.4 million. Gone, not destroyed, moved, hidden, broken down, sold piece by piece. Antwerp markets, private buyers, silent transactions. And while the world mourned Queen Elizabeth II, this operation was already in motion behind the curtain. Then came the laundering, the second phase, shell companies blooming out of Luxembourg like shadows, Hill and Crown Limited, then Stag Crown Hospitality, millions flowing through systems designed to look legitimate, loans secured against assets that technically didn't exist anymore. Think about that, borrowing money against ghosts. And William saw it all, every piece, every connection, every quiet transfer that was never meant to be noticed. But the real twist, the one that reportedly froze him completely, was still buried deeper. Because this wasn't just about money, it was about where that money was going. And once he saw that destination, everything changed. Because the moment the money trail reached beyond borders, beyond Europe, beyond even the palace's own imagination, the entire story twisted into something far darker than anyone was prepared to confront. This wasn't just theft anymore. It wasn't even corruption. It was betrayal with direction, purpose, intent. The kind of betrayal that doesn't just steal from the past, it actively funds the destruction of the future. And when Prince William saw where the pipeline ended, witnesses say something in him didn't just harden, it crystallized permanently. The investigators called it the Montecito pipeline. Quiet name, almost harmless sounding. But what it represented? Explosive. Because hidden within those encrypted Luxembourg accounts was a series of wire transfers so carefully layered, so meticulously disguised, they were never supposed to be traced. Except they were. And one transaction in particular, August 12, 2021, £4.85 million, moving silently across borders, landing inside a private banking institution in Santa Barbara, California. Not random, not accidental, targeted, precise, and linked through internal codes to individuals operating within the Montecito circle. And that's when the narrative shattered completely. Because suddenly, this wasn't just internal betrayal, it was external influence. The unthinkable possibility that the wealth extracted from the Windsor legacy was being funneled outward, potentially to those who had spent years publicly dismantling the monarchy's credibility. A loop, a vicious self-feeding cycle, selling history to fund its own destruction. And when that realization hit, insiders say William didn't react emotionally. He didn't explode. He didn't rage. He went silent. And that silence, that was the real warning. Because from that point on, every move became surgical, calculated, unforgiving. He wasn't just responding anymore. He was erasing the system that allowed it to happen. And that's when the palace realized something else. This operation wasn't possible without help from the inside. A ghost in the machine, a leak, someone close enough to access the core but invisible enough to stay undetected. The Kensington mole. For months, things hadn't been adding up. Private documents leaking, internal strategies surfacing in places they shouldn't, movements predicted before they even happened. Someone was watching from within, and instead of reacting, William waited, set traps, built a silent counterintelligence net inside his own household. And when it finally triggered 4 a.m., just hours before everything collapsed, it exposed something far more dangerous than a single traitor. It exposed access, deep access, the kind that bypasses firewalls, rewrites records, manipulates reality. Because this mole didn't just leak information, they enabled the operation. They accessed appraisal files of the missing treasures. They connected Tom Parker Bowles directly to systems he should never have touched. They forged disposal orders, clean, seamless, official looking. And when they tried to erase it all, to wipe the servers, to delete the evidence, they didn't realize they were already inside a mirror system. Every keystroke captured, every move recorded, the ghost caught in its own reflection. And just like that, the illusion of control inside the palace cracked open completely. Because now, the betrayal wasn't just financial, it was structural, embedded, infecting the very core of the institution. And while all eyes were still focused on the stolen treasures, something else was quietly unraveling behind the scenes. The Royal Wild brand, what had been presented to the public as an eco-conscious artisanal initiative, suddenly looked very different under forensic analysis. Not a business, not a passion project, a laundering machine. Prices inflated by 400%. Products routed through luxury hotels in Dubai and East Asia. Profits cycling back through offshore accounts. Clean on the surface, toxic underneath. A perfect disguise, selling the image of the crown while draining its value behind closed doors. And William saw through it instantly, because at this point, it wasn't about isolated crimes, it was a pattern, a network, a coordinated system that used proximity to power as a weapon. And that's when he triggered the move that changed everything. The sovereign seizure mandate, ancient, rarely used, almost forgotten, but devastating when activated, because it doesn't negotiate, it doesn't delay, it reclaims instantly. Any asset deemed part of national heritage, regardless of ownership, contracts, or legal shields, comes back under the crown's control. And when William branded Raymel House and the entire Stag Crown portfolio as sovereign assets, it wasn't just a legal move. It was a declaration. Resistance wasn't just opposition anymore, it was treason. Banks froze, accounts locked. Luxembourg, Switzerland. Every channel cut off simultaneously. A global financial blackout targeted at a single network. The Parker Bowles empire didn't collapse slowly, it vanished, erased in real time. And back inside the palace, the consequences hit just as hard. King Charles III, already weakened, already struggling, found himself completely sidelined. His attempts to contain the fallout, to protect, to soften, neutralized, because William had already reframed the entire situation. Not family, not scandal, scandal, state crime, theft of national heritage, and in doing so, he removed the last remaining shield protecting Camilla, because now her title meant nothing. The possibility of a subpoena wasn't hypothetical anymore. It was imminent. A queen consort potentially called to testify at the Old Bailey. No precedent, no protection, just law, cold, absolute. And for the first time in modern history, the monarchy wasn't above scrutiny, it was inside it. Meanwhile, inside Raymell House, the reality had fully set in. Surveillance, isolation, communication cut, the image of a powerful matriarch replaced by something far more unsettling, containment. Because the evidence didn't just suggest involvement, it pointed directly at authorization, her signature, her approval, embedded in the very documents that initiated the extraction protocol. And outside, the public mood shifted dramatically. This wasn't blind loyalty anymore. It was something sharper, more demanding. God save the heritage, not the individuals, not the titles, the institution itself. And William, he understood exactly how to channel that, because what he did next wasn't just reaction, it was reconstruction. The Windsor Protocol, a complete overhaul. Every financial interest exposed, every marriage contract audited, every non-blood royal stripped of the ability to quietly profit from the crown's image. Transparency, forced. Accountability, non-negotiable. The shadow economy that had quietly existed within the monarchy for decades dismantled in weeks. And standing beside him, Catherine, Princess of Wales. Calm, precise, reframing the narrative in real time. Not scandal, but restoration. Not collapse, but cleansing. And it worked, because suddenly, this wasn't just about what was lost, it was about what was being rebuilt. But the tension, it didn't disappear. It deepened, because the Montecito link, still under investigation, still unresolved. And if confirmed fully, it won't just be a scandal. It will be a rupture, a permanent severing, legal, constitutional, irreversible. And William is ready for that, prepared for it, waiting. Because by now, one thing is painfully clear. This was never just about money. It was about control, influence, power quietly shifting behind closed doors until someone finally decided to tear those doors off completely. And as the deadline closes in, as the final ultimatum hangs in the air, one question refuses to go away. How many more names are still hidden inside those shadow ledgers waiting to surface next?